What's wrong?
I don't know. It's not recording. It
Yeah, it is.
says it's not.
I'm seeing that. Mine's showing that it is.
Huh. Oh, no. See, mine just posted that it's recording now.
Okay. All right.
That's
Well,
bonus footage. That's bonus
may,
footage for our viewer.
maybe that's on the cutting room floor.
Welcome back to the Wild and Crazy Guys podcast, which may or may not be recording. It seems as though maybe in one spot it is, in one spot it's not. We don't know, but we'll get you something.
Time will tell.
This week's episode was Adele and H.E.R. And boy, I was a big supporter. I was a big fan.
Yeah, we'll get to the recap and the highlights and the grading and such. Just a little bit of background here, I guess. We have Adele had her first hosting performance, but of course she was a two-time musical guest. Her first being in 2008, which she mentioned in the monologue. Josh Brolin was the host, and she was a musical guest, and she credits that with launching her career, partially because that was one of the most watched episodes of that cycle. Because, as she mentioned, it was Tina Fey's first, I think, real crack at Sarah Palin, at least in the debate setting, which was a pretty iconic episode.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, she owes a lot, according to her, to Sarah Palin. Which got an alarm going off here. This is a hot mess of an episode today, and it's going to bring our viewership way down. But yeah, she credits Sarah Palin with a whole bunch of with a bunch of new viewers and bigger audience. And Adele's been huge, God, for years. So maybe it was Sarah Palin.
But I think that she referenced that episode did kind of expose her to a lot of American audience that she hadn't prior. So she did kind of credit the show with that. Now she came back in 2015 with Matthew McConaughey as host, and I recall that episode very clearly because it was the song "Hello" prominently featured in a digital sketch in which the family was fighting at Thanksgiving, and Adele's song "Hello" brought them all back together. That to me was a pretty iconic digital short. I remember it very well.
I enjoy a good Thanksgiving digital short. I think it's the holiday that best lends itself to digital shorts.
Yeah, I think we'll have a chance to get to that. I think we'll have a pretty extended break after coming up here, so we'll have a chance to hash out some of those Thanksgiving moments down the road.
We're just surprised as you are at home to find out that there is another live Saturday Night Live this coming Saturday. So we'll have more content for you.
Maybe we'll talk about that at the end of the show. But like, kind of this year's schedule is kind of wonky, which I guess does to a point make some sense given that. We are in a pandemic and perhaps the show had to take that into consideration. But yeah, having 4 shows in a row is kind of rare. But we're getting 5 and possibly, I would think, a 6th with post-election. But we'll talk about that at the end of the show.
I have a theory, but we'll hold off on that till the end of the theory. That's a cliffhanger.
A theory. Well, that could take the place of our stamps.com trivia question because I don't have one today.
Okay, well, and
maybe stamps.com can sponsor the theory section.
Sure. If you want a theory and if you want trivia, make sure you go to stamps.com to order all your stamp needs. And please use the promo code NORM for our good friend Norm MacDonald.
So the cold open, as it always does, opened the show. And with a perhaps cliche, the debate was featured here. I don't know. They got to do it. I get it, but I'm just done. In my show notes, I wrote the word yawn. I wrote out the word yawn in that it was nothing of substance, nothing good. Even the Rudy Giuliani part was just like, what are they doing? What? I'm ready for the election to be over with. If anything else, just to get rid of these cold opens.
The Rudy Giuliani part was lazy. And the other piece that I noticed about the cold open was I feel like they must have just like promised Maya Rudolph X number of minutes on stage because obviously no Kamala Harris in this sketch, but instead she was the moderator. And I just thought, there are a lot of cast members who are young and hungry and would love some screen time. I thought it was interesting that they used her. So I'm not sure what her deal is, but that's 2 weeks in a row where I feel like they've just kind of thrown Maya in for no real reason.
Right. And I obviously Maya Rudolph does strike a resemblance to Kristen Welker. So perhaps I was part of it, but putting in Punky Johnson or Melissa Villaseñor in that role could have been just as easily done. And is it me or is every week is Jim Carrey going more away from Joe Biden and closer to Ace Ventura, or is that just me?
Jim Carrey is doing a caricature of Jim Carrey.
Okay, that's what I figured.
I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any Joe Biden like feel to what Jim Carrey is doing. Yeah. While on the other end, I think amazingly enough, perhaps by the president's doing, or perhaps by Alec Baldwin's doing, he's becoming a more accurate Donald Trump.
He definitely being more toned down, which I think was always like he should have been toned down. Like you didn't need to ham up Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't need hamming up. It's who he is. It's who he's always been. So yeah. I like the more toned down impersonation. It's more realistic.
I agree.
So that wasn't too long. I think we had 11 minutes, which was short by the standards of this season. So perhaps a silver lining there. And we had the monologue by Adele, which was I kind of like last week. She was visibly nervous. It was some jokes really fell short, which sometimes Adele's not a comedian. Her jokes should fall short.
I like the swear jar.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Have a campy, tie-in with a cast member. That's to me what the monologue should be. So I didn't enjoy it, but it felt normal.
Yeah, I liked it. It was. I thought about actually what you had said last week while I was watching this monologue, and how it was really a much more traditional like callback to what Saturday Night Live monologues usually are.
Yeah, I thought it served the purpose. It did a good job. It perhaps broke the ice for Adele because I think as a host, we'll talk about it later, but I thought she was surprisingly good as a host. Like she didn't look super comfortable ever, as we'll get to, but like she looked like a host who was just dabbling in live theater for probably the first time in her life like this. And it was just fun to see her out of her element.
As you'll hear a little later on, hands down my favorite episode of the season. And a lot of that had to do with Adele being just really a lot of fun.
So our first sketch was the psychic, in which we didn't see them wearing masks, so that maybe was a giveaway, but they eventually realized this was in 2019 that they attended the psychic, and quickly got some bad news, but I kind of liked how they didn't just go for the jugular right away. The first referencing was about Heidi Gardner's boyfriend disinfecting a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
Like what a stupid thing, but like how applicable that was to like at the beginning, we were disinfecting our bags of Doritos when we came home from the grocery store.
We were infecting bags. Yes, absolutely. And then the better part perhaps was that Heidi Gardner was then seen yelling, "That's not enough soap. You need to use more soap than Doritos." Which really is a well done sketch. It was a great concept. The fact that they saw in their future that they were no longer they were no longer friends with Chris Redd because he ate inside. Like it was just a really good sketch. I liked it a lot.
It was, and like I think the challenges for a lot of this season has been, yes, there's so many predictable sketches to go off of, but to like do one that is maybe obvious, but make ways to make it a bit more nuanced. I thought that was a very clever. It wasn't a great sketch; it was just a really good sketch.
And Kate McKinnon was perfectly cast as the psychic, just because she was just silly enough to make it kind of a pretty good comedy.
Yeah. And next up, we have digital short number 1 with Chad. And I text you every time I see Chad. Is I shouldn't like Chad as much as I do, but he never doesn't make me laugh.
Okay.
So Chad in this, he comes to a haunted house, and where he's supposed to help a murdered wife get vengeance for her husband who killed her. And of course, Chad fumbles through it, makes a lot of very crude references that I find to be funny as a 39-year-old man. I probably shouldn't, but I do. And it's just, to me, it always sticks.
I'll be honest with you. The hardest I laughed this entire season was when he called safety. Really got me good. Excellent character.
It's embarrassing that we find that funny, but you know what?
You got to find laughs somewhere in this world.
If you don't like it, this is the wrong podcast. We laugh at safety jokes here.
We don't know which one of you is watching, but we hope you like the safety jokes too.
If you don't, again, maybe this is not the place for you. So Chad, to me, it's the same thing every time, but there's little bells and whistles they put into it that make it really good. So I enjoyed it, and I hope I always like Chad. Cool.
I think you will.
Yeah. Next up, we had The Bachelor, which was a bit of a different take. In the past, The Bachelor always was the women saying, "Can I have a minute with you? Can I steal him?" This was kind of a similar thing, but with Adele playing a very overly zealous woman, playing herself, and using her songs to reflect her emotions.
I I'm gonna say right now this has been the best sketch of the season. This was outstanding. It was funny. It was well done. It was predictable, but she's got such a good catalog of songs that they were able to really intersplice them nicely. And there were also very tiny little nuggets of jokes in there too that weren't Adele based. So the fact that like every girl on the show was named Hannah C or Hannah V or something like
Yeah.
that. It's just funny. It was a well done a sketch. Actually, I liked it so much that I know there's a couple students at the school that we work at that really like the Bachelorette. They like to watch that show, and they also like Adele. So I made sure that they watched this sketch because it was a good mix of the two.
I just like how too these sketches. I like it when they allow for more of the cast to be in there. I hate the sketches that are just two or three people. Sometimes you got to do it, but if you can incorporate all the female or all the males into one sketch, to me that's what it's supposed to be about. And so we'll talk about that later too. But like the more cast members you incorporate, to me, is more reflects the strength of the show. And this did that a lot. And Adele was great. And like, look, I know she's a singer. I know she's a very good voice, but I still think to do it in that kind of context, it's not easy. I mean, you're more of a live theater aficionado than I am, but it's hard to sing like that in the midst of like acting like in a very live, like moment by moment kind of thing. Is that right?
Well, especially because that's really not what she's trained to do. I mean, she's
Yeah.
trained to perform, not to go from acting to singing to acting to singing. And her
And
song, I know her songs are extremely challenging because I know she had to have a throat surgery and she lost some of her range, and so yeah, extra impressive on that end too.
I for a moment actually forgot she was the host, not the musical guest, and thinking like, is this her musical guest performance? But obviously it wasn't. But she's the host. But I thought she did a really good job with it, and it was a fun sketch, and it was a different take on The Bachelor, which is pretty easy, low hanging fruit. But I like how they did it in a much better way than they have in the past.
Heidi Gardner was really a hit. She only had like one or two lines, but she really made me laugh in this sketch.
Yeah, I thought it was.
When she told Adele to pace herself, really, it was I don't know why, but it made me laugh.
Totally. We next had another digital short, which was we've seen this before, but this was I think a very good question. I think too is like the notion of what are we going to talk about when if and when Trump is gone, and how much news he's brought us the last. I mean, I guess 5 years now he was a candidate, and so like, what are we going to talk about? And they worked their way through it. There were some funny parts to it. This wasn't great, but I thought it was a good way of doing something the same but different.
It was reminiscent of was it last week or the week before when they had the empathy pill, and by after taking the empathy pill, they kind of decided they didn't really want to take the empathy pill, and by the end of this sketch, they were saying things like, "Well, yeah, of course, for the good of the country, I don't want him to win, but for entertainment's sake, I don't know."
Yeah.
It was just kind of the same takeoff on the same concept.
And then kind of towards the end, when back Ben, it's like maybe Ivanka can run with Don Jr. in 2024, and everyone's like, no, no, no. That was to me, this was a well written bit. It wasn't that creative, but it was well written.
Yeah.
And to me, that's I can always look back on that and say this wasn't the most original idea, but the talent of the writing comes out. Now, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter beforehand, but they had a moment of like I think Colin Jost going through some cue cards with Alec Baldwin. Again, some of that behind the scenes stuff that we both talk about liking. So I'll send it your way. I don't know if you saw it, but again, I think the writing. Okay, I'll send it your way. But the writing is always to me fascinating how that happens, how that goes down. But this was a well written piece, I thought. We next up then cut to our musical guest, H.E.R. What did Adele call her? Was it Her Majesty H.E.R. or Her Royalness, or she gave her some title before calling her H.E.R.
Yeah, I've got to be honest with you. I had flipped over to the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers at that point, and during the musical performance, that's exactly when the game ended in Texas.
Crazy ending.
So I was enthralled with that and missed the musical performance.
Yeah,
but I was very excited to watch the Rays win that game.
She was good. It was a good performance. Wasn't my musical stylings, but very good performance by her, very very impassioned, and
I
she
did
was
see her.
she
I
was
did see
good.
her. I know we'll get to her second song. I did see her second song, and I really enjoyed it.
I think Damage was first, I believe. I think Damage was first, her first song, and that was pretty intense. We then come back
Yeah,
from
the second song
updates.
was very laid back, very bluesy.
Okay. We come back from updates, which to me was it wasn't a great one until the end. Now Melissa Villaseñor made an appearance, which I'm a big fan of hers, but I didn't know what the purpose of that was, other than just to highlight her, give her some reps, give her some at bats. I mean, her impersonations are really good, but I felt it was kind of forced in there.
It reminded me of when Jay Farrow used to be on Weekend Update. The only reason Jay Farrow would be on there would just be kind of his impersonations, which were very good, and some of Melissa Villaseñor's impersonation. I mean, her Stevie Nicks is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm glad they showcased her. But yes, to your point, the only possible reason for her to be there was that.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought it was really well done. But I also felt like that was an odd place for that. It felt like they had nothing else to go with. So let's just put Melissa to do some impersonations. Which, again, I'm not against that, but it didn't feel it had a very organic moment on that show.
Now that being said, the grand finale with the Village People. I mean, I know we differed a little bit on this. I just adored it.
I did too. I didn't love it the way you loved it, but to me it was like, again, you show off. There were like, I think 5 Village People, and then was it Alex Moffat kind of just bouncing around dancing too, but like
who's Alan Dershowitz?
Oh yeah, that's right. No, it was. I thought this was like vintage SNL, just like a goofy, campy, like bad song and dance, but like well written, well performed. I mean, good choice by them letting Keenan be the vocalist, because probably anyone but him would have struggled with that. But he's just so good like that. It was to me a vintage SNL bit.
I finally decided like how to explain Keenan. I think because he lets you know that he's in on the joke while not totally being in on the joke. Like he knows how stupid and dumb they all looked doing that dance and singing that song, and how ridiculous it was. And he knows that, and he knows that you know that. But he's still going to do it to the best of his ability to make you laugh even harder. Like he's in on the joke, but he's also the joke maker. And I think it's just a talent you don't see very often.
I agree. And look, Colin Jost, he laughs very easily on the show, and being head writer, I think it's kind of part of it. But like watching him behind them, and Che too, like just giggling at this, I think speaks to like how silly and inane it is, but how good Keenan just keeps it together, and he just nails every line of the whole thing. The choreography worked, like it just worked on so many levels, and incorporated 6 cast members. It was great.
Yeah, the fact that they knew what was coming and still laughed anyway is a huge testament to how funny it was.
Yeah, absolutely. So the update jokes I thought were just okay. They were good. Nothing like we've seen the last couple weeks. But still some good moments. But yeah, you're right. This was YMCA or the Village People. This was the big moment of this, and it is a great vintage SNL bit. We come out of update with the grandma going to see grandma at the nursing home from her balcony. I didn't mind them using Maya Rudolph here, but to your point, like we could have put Melissa Villaseñor as the grandma here, right?
We could have put a number of people as the grandma. Now, Maya Rudolph did a great job with it, as she always does. But in total, there were 3 sketches with her this week, and I don't totally understand why. That was a well-written sketch where I think just about anybody could have been the grandma. It was pretty easy to act that part, but I liked the sketch. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought some of the jokes didn't quite land like I thought they should have. I thought the part with Pete Davidson being unemployed, I thought that got really dragged out and not handled all that well. Even with Ego Nodum as the the jilted lover, her husband or her boyfriend left her.
Muscular Devin.
Yeah, Muscular Devin. There were some bits in that were okay, but I thought that could have been better. But it was a good premise, good idea. It just fell a little bit flat for me, but it wasn't a bad bit.
The only reason I liked the Pete Davidson part is because I have been both on the giving and receiving end of conversations like that. Because as you know, my hearing isn't all that great. And there are times when people will give me a soliloquy and I won't hear it and I'll have to say what. And then suddenly what they just told me is 30 words shorter because they don't want to go through it again. So I understood Pete's. It hit home. It hit home.
Okay, so you were Granny there.
But I've also been Pete Davidson. I've also been talking to people and then been responded to with what, and then I just shorten what I said so I don't have to repeat it all again.
Okay, so it felt like home for you.
She made a bracelet that day.
We then had a kind of in trolling through social media, kind of a polarizing moment of the night was the Africa sketch, in which Adele, Kate McKinnon, was there a third one there?
There was, and I don't remember. I don't remember much of the sketch because I just kind of tuned out. It didn't make any sense.
And maybe Heidi Gardner, but they were basically recently divorcees who touted going to Africa and spending time with the tribesmen. I'm you're right.
Yeah, hurt my back a little bit.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the sketch too much, but probably the biggest takeaway from the sketch was Adele just absolutely losing it, which a lot of people do around Kate McKinnon. It's almost like Will Ferrell of old, in which the way that their composure is kept, it forces those around them to crack and pop. And so I kind of like seeing that. I don't know. I like seeing the host especially lose it.
Now, this is not my stamps.com theory, but it is a theory nonetheless. I don't know if that sketch was not hitting the way they wanted it to, but what you notice a lot about when people break on SNL, it's usually during a sketch that is just falling completely flat. And so I guess my theory is one of two. Either they're just totally amused by how bad it is, or they break just to get people to laugh.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think that would probably be a case by case kind of person. Like I think like Jimmy Fallon, he broke if you said the word "the" weird, he would start laughing uncontrollably. Right. So there's rumors of like a word of like when Will Ferrell was the host, he would make this like low pitched noise to like distract people and do things like that to throw them off their game. And Kate McKinnon is very much like that too, it seems. But you're right. This was just from the word go. Once you kind of realize what was going on, it just seemed a very poor concept.
Yeah, I tuned out after 15 seconds. It just didn't do anything for me.
We then had H.E.R.'s second performance of the night.
I liked this one. I saw this one and I liked this one.
She busted out the guitar for this one and played it. Yeah, fine song, all good. And then we closed out the show with a digital short of sorts, in which we had an '80s scene in which two women were at a bar with some acid wash jeans that apparently smelled really good, but caused a lot of chemical reactions to coming in contact with anything. There must have been some joke here that I missed.
Well, third time's not a charm for Maya Rudolph. I'll tell you that much, because this was another sketch that I just said I don't know what's going on here. I got some joy out of Beck Bennett singing.
The music video, very 80s, like just a very bad 80s video, and that part I was okay with that. That was kind of a fine ending, but I didn't get some of the other references to it.
It was perfectly placed. It's definitely a 12:55 type of sketch.
Yeah, for sure. And that was it. That was the end of the show. They went from there to the closing credits. Again, no Cecily at the studio, no 80 in the studio. Everyone else did seem to be there from what I saw.
I don't recall seeing much Kyle Mooney this week.
No, I recall seeing him in the closing credits, but he did not, to my knowledge, make any appearances. I don't think he was part of the Village People. But that would have been it. So yeah, no Kyle Mooney on this week. No new guy. I do believe both the new women got in, albeit for a short spell. But yeah,
I did notice that Daryl Hammond gets a lot of excitement out of the new guy's name. He really puts a lot of emphasis in it. He's very excited about it.
So let me ask you this. I don't know if you noticed this, and maybe I haven't before, but like when Daryl Hammond does the "Ladies and Gentlemen, Adele, like it seems kind of flat. Maybe we're just to Don Pardo so much, but I noticed it more this week than before. But it seemed like kind of just like dour and flat, and didn't really have that pep. Maybe the audience is more subdued with less people there, but it felt like less of a pop moment, if you will.
Yeah, I wonder because to even that out, when you're listening to his introductions, they're actually much more energetic than I think Don Pardo's were. I think Don Pardo's were I mean, very famously kind of monotone in his Don Pardo way, whereas I think Daryl Hammond is very excitable when it comes to the cast members' names.
Now, for our Patreon subscribers, if you email us, we will say your name as musical guest or a host in our Don Pardo voice. So, Patreon members, make sure you email us for that. It's like Cameo, but we do our Don Pardo impersonations.
Now, do you want to? We can just give them do you want to give me a fake name and we'll show them?
Well, I think too, at some point we need to bring back our little game of like we do the musical guest, and one of us tries to guess who the host was for that musical guest in our Don Pardo voices. So maybe we can make it free for the first time, but then for subsequent versions of that game, we could have it for our Patreon subscribers only.
Just to give you a heads up as to what it might be, it would sound a little something like this. Musical guest B. Arthur.
God, if B. Arthur was a musical guest, I mean, oh man, well, who would it be the host or B. Arthur as musical guest?
Well, it depends. Are we talking about Maude, or are we talking about the Golden Girls? Because if it was the Golden Girls, your host, Steve Guttenberg.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. No, I don't think Maude. I think Maude finished up running before SNL was on the air. I believe. I think that finished in
a very tiny overlap towards the end, but you might be right there.
Well, this is our other podcast listeners can tune into our podcast of Norman Lear TV shows today for more information about that.
Damn.
Patreon subscribers, you're in for a treat. All right, do you care to share your theory now? Brought to us by Stamps.com. For all your postage needs, go to Stamps.com. Use coupon code NORM or coupon code Wild and Crazy Guys
for a total of 0% off your order. Let me give you my grade for this week first, and then I'll give you my theory. My grade for this week, I'm giving it a very solid B, which is hands down the highest grade I've given any episode yet this week. The only reason it didn't get an A were the Africa sketch and the Jeans sketch. Otherwise, it would have been an A from me.
Yeah, I thought, like I texted you, a lot of singles and doubles, no home runs. I go B as well. Probably definitely better than last week. I gave a B minus, but not quite a B plus for me.
Now, my Stamps.com theory of the week has to do with the schedule and the reason that we're going to get 6 or 7 episodes in a row. A lot of places, especially New York, the state of New York, has travel quarantine orders. And if any of these folks are going home or they're going to any of the states in which you have to quarantine once you return to New York, you need to allow some time for that. So I think this is probably going to go up, as you said, probably the Sunday after November. And then we may not see anything. We may only see 2 episodes before Christmas.
Right. And like, I think a lot of them go back to LA or typically LA, but like even just traveling around the area, maybe the Northeast, going to do comedy shows. Right now, that's not happening. Right now, very few shows are in production. So like if these cast members were to go back home, what are they going to do? Like, what are they doing? So I think that keeping them not locked in, but in New York, in the studio for 6 weeks, tell them, hey, we'll grind it out for 6 weeks. We'll give you longer breaks, but this is the way it has to be right now.
Well, if you go 6 weeks on and then you go 6 weeks off, that would get us to roughly 2 weeks before Christmas. So I do think we'd get 2 more, because I think typically you'd only get 8 or 9 episodes prior to the holiday. So that makes sense to me.
Right, and I think that the Christmas episode is so iconic. I think they'll incorporate that at least 2. I'd say 3, but depending on travel stuff and who knows. I mean, numbers across the country aren't looking great, so perhaps they'll be under some restrictions and maybe only be able to do 2 before Christmas. But I think that's about right. I think that Stamps.com theory is pretty good.
Well, thank you very much.
So we got so next week, as you mentioned, we got a friend coming back, John Mulaney.
Boy, do I love John Mulaney, and what perfect timing for him. The world needs John Mulaney. Most of the time on Instagram, I don't see a lot of people younger than us saying anything about Saturday Night Live. It's not really a huge hit with the younger generation. Once John Mulaney was introduced as the host, my God, everybody's stories were lighting up because they love John Mulaney and they love the Strokes.
So it is a fascinating thing about him because he was not a cast member. He was a writer for a long time, and kind of was known only in SNL circles as being just a very good writer and a very just funny guy. But he's kind of just last 4 or 5 years really blown up and become a pretty big deal. His stand-up specials are pretty well regarded, and he's become like this ace in the hole almost every year now. He's hosting. Is this 4 for him?
I think
3.
I think I saw it was 3, but it could be 4. But no, you're right, because he is. We talked a lot about the first 2 episodes this year and how we didn't love the stand-up timing. Give me a half an hour of Mulaney. I don't care. Let him keep going. I'm all in because his humor is just always dead on. It's fantastic. He's a Chicago guy, so there's a lot of references that those of us here in the city pick up on. You know, give me as much Mulaney as a man can handle.
And interesting fight to see with him because like I think he might be rusty, but like I think I'll see him not being rusty because he is just so good. He's just so sharp, and I think he'll do a great job. But you hope that they do kind of maybe pare him back a little bit. Now he played Biden, didn't he, in the past?
He's played Biden in the past, but you know that didn't mean anything to anybody because they had some pretty good Bidens in the past, and we've got Jim Carrey now. So.
No, for sure. So I wonder if like they'll have a dueling Biden kind of thing, or if maybe Jim Carrey does give him the week off. I don't know, but there's no debate this week, so perhaps there's got to be some political stuff in there. But there's no
3 days before the election. There's gonna be something political.
So we'll probably obviously have some Halloween stuff too, as it will be Halloween night.
My guess is that we get the candidates trick or treating. Or hosting trick-or-treat parties for undecided voters.
Yeah, that's a pretty milk toast prediction here. There'll be a trick-or-treat sketch going on. That is almost guaranteed to be happening. As you mentioned too, we also then have the Strokes hosting, which I didn't know they were still doing a whole lot of stuff. They were real big in the early 2000s, but had not seen much from them since. So, perhaps that's something good for us.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Strokes, but the World Series will be over by then, so I can guarantee you all get to see both of their performances.
And we've heard nothing about the following week, right? There's been no.
Each of the last 3 weeks they've announced the host and the musical guest for the following week during the show. So we're going to find out together on Halloween if there is a show on November 6th. I guess that is.
I would just be shocked if they don't have anything following the election. To me, I would be shocked about that.
I remember November 7th. Excuse me. One of the most poignant moments that I can recall was the Saturday Night Live after the election in 2016 with Kate McKinnon as Hillary Clinton doing the cold open. One of the more amazing moments of SNL history that I can recall.
With the Hallelujah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a pretty big moment, and kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit there to some degree. That was a pretty well established opening. I'm eager to see how they handle the election, and to be honest, like we might not know by that Saturday who the winner is going to be. So that would be kind of an intriguing wrinkle into that.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it too. There could be that's the beauty of Saturday Night Live is that the writers are going to have to be on their toes really all the way up until 10:30 because we may not have a lot of answers.
Well, I remember hearing about that in the past when Dave Chappelle hosted in 2016 of like, they went to their table read on Tuesday morning on election day. They kind of fully prepared for Clinton to win, and then very quickly had to kind of redirect some stuff. And so that's always kind of interesting to see how they have to kind of pivot in real time, and they may not have much time that week. So that should be exciting to watch. If you're looking for excitement that week, that might be it.
Yeah, that's the only excitement happening that week is Saturday Night Live on November 7th. which may or may not be a rerun. We don't even know.
Well, we'll have new content for free and for our Patreon subscribers.
Yeah, why don't you tell the folks at home what our content is for our Patreon subscribers next week?
Well, maybe we'll have the show, but if not, we are going to go through our own personal favorite presidents, favorite political sketches. We were going to do a Halloween episode, but that might get pushed. So maybe we postpone Halloween for a couple of weeks, but we also have to do a Thanksgiving, I think, bit coming up. So we'll have to get creative because we might have 6 weeks to fill.
Well, one of the weeks is going to be a review of our time at the Saturday Night Live Christmas party, which is going to be the episode of all episodes. I'm telling you that right now.
You better get some pictures together to make a slideshow.
Oh yeah, we'll screen share.
Yeah, we can picture it with our friend Tim Kazurinsky.
We had a nice time with Tim Kazurinsky and a very good lookalike of Rosanna Dana, and of course the fine folks who inspired the name of this podcast, the Wild and Crazy Guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well that's going to do it for this week. There's the music. There it is. That's it. Well, we will see you next week, or maybe not. We'll find out. Joe, say good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe.
We'll see you all. Take care, and thanks for tuning in.